Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. And the first thing I would say is Happy World FM Day. Today's the day. It's World FM Week actually, but I know already across the globe there's been many celebrations of FM and workplace and what we do in this wonderful profession of ours. So I think there's been at least 30 events so far, more happening throughout the day today, and also happening throughout the week. It's been all over a decade since we had our first World FM Day, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and better and better. So welcome to this webinar, which is Standing Tall, Strategic Facilities Management Leading Beyond the Pandemic. And this is hosted by the Iwfm International Special Interest Group. My name's Steve Gladwin, and I'm the chair of the International Special Interest Group, and it's a great privilege to be hosting this seminar today. With me, and I'll do some introductions in a minute, I've got Gibbons, Sarah Campbell and Simon Titchner. But I just wanted to put this in perspective. I mean, the last 16 months has been extremely stressful, extremely changing for many of us. Throughout the pandemic, across many industries and sectors, the workplace and facilities management profession has constantly demonstrated its agility to switch from a focus of service and maintaining service to really managing real-time risks and facilitating that safe return to workplace. I think we've also seen this coming together of facilities and workplace, HR and IT to work together to get solutions so that organisations can still operate throughout the whole pandemic. And beyond these already taxing demands, pressures mounting for the industry to evolve into a more proactive and a strategic partner. And we've been talking about this in the industry for many, many years, but I think over the last 15 months, we've really demonstrated how FM and workplace is a strategic value add to many organisations. And what we're going to be learning today from some of our panelists is how some of their innovative solutions can really support and improve the strategic objectives of many organisations. So in this webinar, the panel is going to discuss the profession, how it's shifted to a more strategic role, explore implications for the change from a corporate situation, a service provider and a customer perspective, and also consider what it means for those already working in or actually seeking a career in workplace and facilities management. And having spent almost 30 years in this sector, I really do believe it's a real catalyst the last 14 months for really taking this profession to another level. So a few introductions. As I said, my name's Steve Gladwin. I'm a director of Notice Solutions Limited. I chair the International Special Interest Group. With me, I've got Sarah Campbell, and Sarah's the APAC Senior Workplace Lead for LinkedIn. And many of us will be using LinkedIn, many of us will use LinkedIn on a regular basis, and that's changed our world of communicating, hasn't it? We no longer have business cards, we just rely on LinkedIn. But she has over 10 years experience in managing teams and clients in different blue chip corporates and government organisations across UK and Asia. She has an MBA, which has enabled her to apply her strategic and tactical mindset into FM and workplace, and is really passionate about providing first-class customer service. And her team really go the extra mile in supporting and improving LinkedIn's strategic objectives. I've personally followed Sarah's career over the last decade. I met her first in London when she was working for a big blue chip corporate brand in London, and then she went out to APAC working for the Foreign and Commonwealth account, where she was actually involved in an ambassadorial role for World FM Day for a couple of years, about 4 or 5 years ago. And I know firsthand that Sarah's a very, very enthusiastic individual who loves what she does and bizarrely loves the fast-paced nature of workplace and FM. So welcome, Sarah, and thanks for being part of this panel debate today. Next, I'll introduce Sean Gibbons, and Sean sits on our International Special Interest Group Committee with myself. Sean is the head of Global Real Estate Facility Management for Roche Diagnostics. Sean leads the Centre for Best Practice and Guidance to support the provision of inspiring workplaces that are cost efficient, space efficient, sustainable. His responsibility extends to FM, corporate real estate, and works across more than 100 countries. He holds a Master's in Science in FM, and prior to joining Roche, worked in leading positions with Faithful and Gould, W.S. Atkins and Zurich Financial Services. As I said, Sean sits on this committee and has been part of pulling together the whole Global FM agenda for World FM Day, along with another colleague of mine, Nigel Luca, who I'll say a few words about in a minute, who's not on the panel, but it would be remiss of me not to say a few words about Nigel. So thanks, Sean, for all you've done with this World FM Day debate. And last but not least, Simon Titchner. Simon is the Chief Commercial Officer for the UK and Ireland and has worked for ISS, one of the leading providers globally of service, for over 15 years, almost 15 years. He's worked across various roles across UK and globally before joining the UK and Ireland Executive Board in 2019 as the Chief Commercial Officer, looking after the specialist business, including cleaning, security, technical and support services. Prior to ISS, he worked for Aramark and Compass Group, and he's got a degree in catering and hotel management. And I mentioned Nigel Luca. Nigel is the Director of Facilities and Estates at University of Suffolk. He's not on this panel debate, but I know he's listening. Spent over a decade in Singapore, overseas head of Ops and Foreign and Commonwealth Office, managing 39 properties. And he really has been instrumental with Global FM and Sean in driving all of the World FM Day events across the world with a global task force. But enough of the introductions. Let's kind of hear more from our panelists today. And what I would encourage everybody to do is, if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat box. I'm going to ask the panel for some opening remarks, but if you've got questions, put them in the chat box and I'll certainly try and get to as many of them as possible. But if I could just go to some comments first from some of you about what's changed over the last 15 months. And Sean, putting you on the spot there, mate, you're in a global position. What's changed for you and Roche from an FM and workplace perspective?
Yeah, I mean, from an FM perspective, I think it's really raised awareness of the value that FM can provide. So previously, rightly or wrongly, FM was perceived predominantly at an operational or a tactical level. But now I think we're being recognized more by the business as a key strategic business partner to actually help the business get to where they want to through providing workplace, real estate, operational solutions to support that. So I think it's actually been an opportunity for us, which I think many within the industry have actually leveraged to really sort of raise us up to that level beyond the guys in the background that are sort of keeping things up and running.
Very good. Simon, what about yourself? What's changed for you and ISS in terms of the pandemic?
I think I fully agree with what Sean's just said, but I think the word that I would sum up the last 15 months in my organisation and across is collaboration. I think it's really, we've stepped that up both in our organisation, both in the country and across the globe to help and support each other. If we take APAC that started this pandemic first, so lessons learned came across to us to support us in Europe and the UK. And also with customers and with other suppliers where we've joined forces to support, the NHS, for example, to make sure we are sort of working as one team. So collaboration, definitely, and agility. I think we've had to be really nimble, think on our feet, change direction really quickly from 1 minute to the next to be able to support our customers in the way they needed.
Very good, very good. And at LinkedIn, so I'm assuming membership numbers might have gone up a little bit at LinkedIn as everyone's like kind of looking to see what everyone's doing. But what's changed for you?
I completely agree with what Sean and Simon have said. I think the last 15 months have given us a chance to be leaders in that strategic piece and being able to lead from the front and actually show what we can do. And I think without FM, most people wouldn't even be back at work or working remotely, it wouldn't be possible. So even when people haven't been in the office, those spaces still need to be serviced, still need to be cleaned. And I think for the first time, there's been real recognition as well for the people on the ground, as well as that strategic option, which is not something that we've really seen before. And I think, like I said, leading from the front, we are having conversations from a strategic place of that hybrid working that they're looking at to come back, how that's going to work, what people are going to be doing, how much space we need. Like no one really knows any of these answers, but we're actually, like Simon said, being able to collaborate effectively with other departments like IT, HR, like everyone kind of coming together, which is something we've been talking about for such a long time and you haven't really seen come to fruition. So I think, that's, I would say, would be the kind of biggest change that I've seen.
Very good, very good. And in terms of innovation, I often hear people criticize facility managers and workplace, particularly, in a service provider perspective, that there's a lack of innovation, which I actually don't think is true. But when we think about what drives innovation, sometimes it's conflict, sometimes it's major change that actually drives us to be more innovative. So from an innovation perspective, could I just ask the panelists, and I might start off with Simon first, to give us an example of an innovative approach taken by workplace and facilities management you've seen, Simon, in terms of resulting from the pandemic?
I think the one that I suppose springs to mind the most, and it was from sort of early last year, was in our aviation sector. So we provide a number of services to some of the key airports in the UK. And when this hit, there was like real sort of panic set in within the airports. Well, how do we cope with this? How do we make sure passengers that are coming through safely? So once again, using our global reach, we contacted our colleagues in the likes of Hong Kong and Australia that have big aviation businesses. And suddenly we could take some of their ideas and concepts and bring them here. And really, we as an organisation, a safe way of passengers coming through an airport, looking at things like the UV cleaning of the toilet areas. We commissioned something called nanoseptic, which was something that could be put on all of the trolleys and in the trays that basically killed all sort of germs, including COVID 99.9. So that safe way through. Putting in hygiene stewards, so having people in a different level of the organisation, different uniforms, help support and bring the passengers through the airport, and those kind of things, and tying them all together into an overarching holistic sort of safe route for a passenger as they enter the airport through to getting on the plane. And that's been really successful. And I think certainly the number of the airports without our help would not have been able to have provided the services and the security to their passengers without our support.
I'll ask Sean the same question, but I might come back to you, Simon, and just ask, how do you embed that type of culture going forward so that it doesn't just become a one-off? So I'll ask Sean the same question, and I might just get you to think about that, embedding the culture, so that, as I say, we see more of it rather than just being impacted by this one-off pandemic, hopefully one-off. But Sean.
Yeah, I think for us, it's focused around ways of working. I think a good example is a project to procure an FM delivery model for our UK office headquarters and logistics centres. And this took place at the height of lockdown and really required the adoption of different ways of working and leveraging video and virtual tools. So the actual Roche team itself was quite dispersed. The UK head of FM was based in the Netherlands. The local FM team was based down in Burgess Hill near Gatwick. And we had consultants in London and the global team based in Basel and Glasgow. So everything was going fine. When the UK opened up from the first lockdown back in May, and the team was mainly working on a face-to-face basis. And a plan and a program had been established for the RFP. The idea that would run from September until April 21. So far, so good. But unfortunately, no sooner did the RFP process commence than it was almost immediately impacted by the imposition of the national lockdown at the end of October. So the question was, what do we do? Well, I think due to the work done, the commitments made and the need for progress, the team decided to adapt and continue to manage the RFP. But how could this happen? And what were the challenges that FM faced? Normally, for these type of exercises, there'd be significant face-to-face contact, but this just wasn't possible. Data collection was more difficult, had to be done mostly remotely, but we did need physical asset surveys where there was no remote option. So how to do this without compromising operations was a challenge, particularly given that the distribution center was a critical location for COVID test products. An interesting bidder engagement was also another challenge. Again, had to be done fully remotely. Bidders were also under pressure, as I'm sure Simon will confirm, from existing clients, and therefore their resources were stretched. And what was also interesting was that despite the pandemic, the number of opportunities in the FM market was actually quite significant, and therefore the local team had to carefully position the RFP to ensure it really generated the right level of interest in the market. So how did FM respond to this challenge? Well, I think for a start, establishing clear lines of governance and responsibility was absolutely critical. Obviously, there was a significant increase in the use of virtual meeting tools, Google Meet, Zoom, and so on. All document preparation and sharing was carried out using online collaborative tools with clear ownership and tracking of document status. And this resulted in a completely paperless bid. Physical site visits were not possible. Therefore, the team prepared a video tour, which was made available to all bidders. And some of the documentation that needed to be briefed was done via Zoom, as well as being recorded and shared online. So what did we learn from this exercise? I think virtual site tours were considered a success by us and also the bidders. And the feedback was that this was a really useful point of reference for bid preparation. And we'll add this to physical tours in the future. I think as we've all experienced, understanding that we can use virtual tours more than virtual tools more than before. And I think in future, this will probably lead to a better balance between the face and online meetings. I think another big learning for us is it really forced the team to consider what is really important, being prepared to explain and clarify, and also provide tutorials where needed. And again, I'm sure we've all noticed, face-to-face communications can be more nuanced. Virtual comms can miss social or visual cues. So focus is, again, really important.
Yeah.
And so I think in summary, I think it highlighted that FM is quick to adapt and is open to adopt different approaches while managing timelines and constraints. And I think it helped that, you know, we had some experience of working in more flexible concepts for a period of time. So yeah, good outcome, but a lot of learnings for us.
Fantastic, fantastic. And before I go to Sarah, just a heads up for Simon. I'm going to put Simon on the spot with a great question that's come in from Susie Speakman, just about costs, and because we're recognising our frontline staff as being so important, how does that? Are we going to reevaluate the pay and benefits that have historically been poor? And I'll ask all you of that, but that's, I might go to Simon for that one. But Sarah, talk about the innovation from your perspective.
Sure. I suppose like over the last 15 months, from my perspective, you've seen the biggest transformation in our sector that I think you've seen in so many years, and I doubt we'll see again in my lifetime anyway. And building on what Simon was saying, what Sean was saying around the technology, and Simon also, from that journey in an airport, what we're looking at now with people going back into the office is how do we integrate that technology and remote working into an office experience, so you can have people working side by side remotely with people in the office, and that kind of human experience, and how you're really kind of putting those together with some of the things that Simon was saying around, the kind of cleaning digitally and, other pieces in there. So I think the tech piece, no one ever thought that we would be able to run companies from home for such a long amount of time. And I think from a cultural perspective in Asia, that was really revolutionary, that people were still doing their work, it was still working, and they could function. In China, you see now people are fully back in the office, because from a cultural perspective, that's what they do. In other places, in Singapore, they're really pushing for some flexibility and how they kind of bring in that tech alongside it. So I think it's a work in progress. It's not there yet. And I think there's going to be some trial and error in how companies are adopting that and looking at it. But I think that's going to be one of the really big changes over the next 12 months with people going back into the office.
This technology and this debate is sparking the questions coming in, and I've just had a question from Ed Baldwin about technology, and others are coming in as we speak about, are people going to make that investment? Are people going to make the investment? Service providers, are ISS going to be making that investment? Simon, putting you on the spot about investment in technology, and also how do we reevaluate the pay and benefits in these frontline workers? What's your views on these two subjects, mate?
So I'll take the technology one first. I think we see it as absolutely a significant part of our future, to the point that we have now at our group board level. He'll start in a few weeks' time. We have employed a board level, a chief digital officer. So we recognise that actually, and the funding we're putting into technology going forward is probably tenfold to what we have in the past. So we see it as a significant part of our own organisation's future, but also how we interact and work with our customers within their organisations. So it's probably in the top 2 to 3 things on the group board agenda is how we take that and fast track it to get to where we need to get to. I think we've got some great ideas and concepts, but actually, we need to now really put the petrol in the engine to get it moving to a space where, and the pandemic's probably pushed that, because we can see what's happened. And so, I think it's absolutely critical. We've recognised it, and every country within ISS group is having to reevaluate how they then will look at their technology agenda.
Yeah. And the other difficult one, Simon, I mean, for many weeks, we all stood out and clapped frontline workers, the NHS, the cleaners, the porters, the security guards, and they were the unsung heroes. But then we kind of, without getting too political, we see no increases, 1% increases for certain workers. What's your view on these frontline workers and what we should do? Very difficult position, because you're influenced by your clients as well.
We are. We absolutely, as an organisation, push and look at the living wage as a minimum in our organisation, and that's what when we bid work, that is absolutely our start point as an organisation. We are a frontline employer. We employ in the UK alone over 38,000 employees, and they have been the backbone of all of our time in the last sort of 14 to 15 months. They always have been, but even more so in the last year and a half. And we have been doing a lot of things in the way of sort of reward and recognition across the year, part of the pay at the moment, but in ways to sort of celebrate and reward exceptional service that's been done out there with our frontliners that have done an amazing job. You know, we have actually lost 24 employees, frontline employees, to COVID that were actually at work, whether they were security guards, cleaners, porters, whatever. Yeah, and that has been a real traumatic experience across the organisation. And that's something we are, now actively looking at how we recognise that in a long-standing way for the service that those employees gave. But when it comes back to things like sort of benefits and pay, it's something as a board we have started to evaluate and look at in the way of that at the moment, and it's something that is on our agenda and we're working through that around reviewing both the comp and bends for our employees and our workforce. So it's work in progress. We are looking to do what we can do, obviously based within certain constraints, but it's something we push with our customer base more and more, that they need to recognise that these individuals need to be paid differently, because obviously we need to be able to get them to step up as well as customers, and it's important they understand that.
Absolutely, and it's just, and I put you on the spot there, Simon, but when you're in that tendering position, I think it's absolutely incumbent on the client side and the procurement side to recognise that they drive the agenda as well. And I think we need more discussion in this area. And we also need more discussion, I think, about other ways to incentivise and motivate staff that are working remotely. And that's a question that's come in from Alfred about what is that we can incentivise and motivate our staff that are working remotely. So taking that question, Sean, if I may, you're working remotely today, I'm assuming, different parts of the world. How do you get people engaged? Because there's been some organisations every week in the press. JP Morgan just announced that they won't have remote working. Everyone's in the office because we're losing the art of collaboration. But how do you motivate people that are working remotely?
I think it's clearly a challenge. I mean, if we look at it in different markets, as we shift more towards hybrid ways of working, it will become, or it is already becoming, a topic from a talent attraction perspective. Certainly, we're seeing in Asia Pacific, this is a requirement from certain people. They want to work, but they want to have that freedom to also work in potentially a hybrid way. I think aside from the incentivization piece for corporates, there's a real big piece around, well, how do you get this individual still feeling that they're part of a big organization, given that they might be working 30, 40, 50, 60% or above away from the office? How do we ensure the environments? How do we make sure that corporate culture can be maintained and advance? Does less time in the office mean an erosion in company culture? I think the truth is we just don't know at the moment. This is being explored by a lot of organizations. Our people and culture team are actively investigating that. We're doing it not at a corporate level, because from our perspective, one size doesn't fit all. We have operations in more than 100 countries. So something that is right for China, I think, as Sarah mentioned, will not be right for Singapore and cannot be right for the US or the UK or whatever. So I think we will end up with, a lot of different ways of working. I think we'll end up with different incentivization programs. And I think the focus will be for us around how can we as FMs do what we can to enhance the employee experience, irrespective of where people are working. I think that's the key role that we play.
Very good, very good. I fully agree. Sarah?
So I think that, when you're saying about incentivizing people and, that culture piece, there are ways of doing it. And, kind of going into a tech company, there's different things, like we have like an in-day each month. So it's no meetings all day. and you can either clear inbox and get your work done, or they do workshops that might be something weird and wacky like soap making, you know, that you're doing virtually, but you're kind of doing it as a team. But I think the main thing that I found in APAC anyway is giving people the trust to do what they need to do, give them the flexibility to be able to do it, and kind of like ask them to act as an owner, you know? So you're creating that remote culture that then kind of comes into the workplace and being able to do that. So you have got a bit of flexibility instead of just being in meetings all day and on Zoom calls all day, that you can take some time for your own mental well-being and to be able to promote that and what you're looking at. And that all comes into that workplace experience, which is now remote as well. So there's that kind of HR piece that is so important, that's kind of being rolled up into the workplace experience. And those are the kind of things that I'm looking at, you know, like if I get all my work done, can I go and do some learning or some development, or take that time out for myself because I've got square eyes and I've been looking at a screen all day, and kind of mix it up, but be able to have the autonomy and the trust from my company to be able to do that, to get the best out of me, you know?
Yeah, fantastic point, Sarah. It made me think half a century ago, back in 1954, Peter Drucker, the great Peter Drucker, wrote a book called Management by Objectives. And he talked about how we need to set people objectives, trust them to get on with it, and then check in. And what I've seen over my career is people still looking over people's shoulders and checking all the, if they're turning up at 9 o'clock, going at 5 o'clock. And I think what this has done is actually said, let's trust our people more. Let's trust them, because we need to go back to that management by objectives. Interestingly, though, as an interesting observation from Lindsay Nichol that's come in and said, well, we still need to have individual teams go into site, particularly, you know, as operatives managing maintenance, they still need to be on site. They still need to do the work. So that was an interesting observation. I just want to go on to raising the bar and talking about the strategic issues a bit more. And that was kind of touched on by Sean when he talked about enhancing the workplace experience or the customer experience. 10 years ago, I read a fantastic report that said FMs need to be more strategic. And here we are talking about that still. But can the panel give us an example within their own roles where FM has played a role in being more strategic and supporting the corporate objectives of your organizations, or in Simon's case, his clients? Sean, you mentioned workplace experience. Have you got another example?
Yeah, I think generally, you know, as I mentioned in the opening remarks, what we're seeing is that FM is being more proactive rather than reactive, particularly in engagement with the business these days. And I think hence is much better positioned to develop the strategies that support implementations of business plans than we have in the past. And I guess immediate example that springs to mind of this is through working closely with one of our large commercial organizations in Asia, where FM has been brought in right at the beginning, at an early stage, as business explores key markets for expansion. And as a result, FM can start to develop value-adding workplace and service delivery strategies to support this growth, whilst at the same time reviewing opportunities to optimize across the current portfolio. And in terms of how that strategy is developed, I guess at a simplified level, we really start by understanding what are the drivers of the business, where are the markets targeted for growth, what is the timing and scale of expansion, as well as what is the leadership team's vision for how FM in the workplace can actually play a role in supporting this expansion. And in addition to doing all of the usual stuff, you know, real estate market analysis, looking at maturity, looking at the range of workspace and FM service delivery solutions available, we're also able to start leveraging that technology, you know, looking at what is the occupancy data post-COVID, so that we're able to gain a picture of headcount relative to workplace demand. Running employee surveys, for example, to provide insights into the appetite for working in hybrid ways. And as I mentioned before, the people and culture team really looking at how can they look at getting this additional collaboration or maintaining that? How can they look at attracting the right talent as different models in different markets are considered? So I think FM now, rather than just focusing on the provision of what in the past has been really tactical and operation solutions that really happen after those key business decisions are made, and as a result, can be suboptimal. Now, through this early engagement, we're actually starting to be recognized as a much more strategic partner for the business. And as a result, we're well positioned to develop flexible, value-adding solutions, which I think is really important to provide that clear line of sight to the overall business objectives. And I think in the past, we just haven't really been able to do that.
And Sean, just staying with you, because you're in charge of not only workplace, but also corporate real estate. One of the questions is, what arguments do the panel recommend against the knee-jerk reactions to sell off offices? And this is coming from Sarah Jowett. And I kind of think, when I read the papers again, I see large corporates saying we're going to reduce our corporate real estate. BP have announced that. Where do you see that whole situation, this knee-jerk reaction to sell off office space or get rid of office space?
I think certainly from our perspective, we're a lot more cautious in terms of our approach. We don't know how long this pandemic will continue for, and what are the longer lasting impacts on how we use our space. So we're not making any rash decisions at the moment, but what we are doing is we're actually looking at the innovation that is coming from the market, which is service offerings of shorter leases, more flexible leases, third-party spaces, more flex office, as an opportunity to complement what we have already, and perhaps moving away from establishing either buying or leasing in all markets to perhaps having a blend of solutions, from working from home on one side through to the corporate office, through to third party to third spaces. So I think from our perspective, we're not making any rash decisions. We want to see how the land lies. And then we will develop, whatever's the appropriate solution, which really will depend on a whole range of factors, from the maturity of the local market to the appetite for staff from working in a different way, and to the attitude of management. I think your point was well made. In some locations, presenteeism is very important. In perhaps with more liberated management, they're prepared to work in different ways. That will have an impact on the real estate solutions that we provide.
Sure. I'll ask Sarah. So I was going to ask Sarah the same question. But
I was just going to say, in my opinion, the knee-jerk reaction to be selling off real estate and reducing your footprint is crazy. Like we're just going through these discussions in various different ways, and actually what we're finding now, because of the way that the pandemic is restricting the space, so you've got social distancing in a lot of places, a meter or a meter and a half, and also the kind of ways that people are going to be using the office. So it's not, you're not just going to go and sit and do your emails in the office. There's going to be collaboration spaces. There might be focus areas. There's going to, the office environment is going to change drastically, I think, over the next 12 months. And what we've actually found when we're looking at design and build of what those areas are going to look like, you're actually going to need more space to have, so even if you're going to reduce to a flexible working of maybe doing 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, which seems to be the general consensus of what people are kind of looking at moving forward, to make those hybrid spaces in the office, to make it a good experience. And what people are now looking for is that you're actually going to need more space to have the same amount of people in, or the same amount of space with less people in it. So I think that kind of knee-jerk reaction, I would be very cautious, you know, in most of the places, and we're actually looking to expand to be able to accommodate that in the next two to 3 years of what that's going to look like. And I think that's one of the really exciting bits of FM. Like I said, we're at the forefront of it. We're leading from the front. We've got a seat at the table. You know, we're collaborating with design and build, IT, HR. We're sending these surveys out. We're getting the information back, and we're actually being able to build something new that you haven't really seen before, which is really exciting.
Fantastic. And the questions are coming in thick and fast, so this is great to see. We're going completely off script, and I'm going to put Simon on the spot now. Simon, ISS, you know, you work at some of the most largest organizations in the world, Bank of America, HSBC. Many of these organizations, their people are working at home. So what do we do in terms of providing service to those people at home? Because a good question that's come in from Susie Speakman is that millions of people are working from home, and that's a huge risk. So are you seeing services extending to people in the workplace that's now the home? And Sarah might also answer this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we have seen, I suppose, at the start of the pandemic was customers asking us to do certain things in pretty much a sort of an ad hoc sort of way. And I think what we saw very quickly was actually there was a need for us to sort of put together a proper proposition around how we can support our customers with their home workers. So over the last few months, we've been working on that, trialing it with a number of customers, and we now have a package of options that the customers can now buy, which is about it all around the working from home. So, for example, it's simple things that we've got a package that people can order online from their home to us, and we deliver, which is things like a box for a cleaning package. So in that is all sanitizers, screen wipes, all the basic things. The little box can be delivered as if they're ordering it off Amazon, but come to us. Secondly, there is things like furniture packages. So if you like a sort of a 3 or 4 different levels of things that people can order, we deliver and install. We're also getting around to doing sort of the assessments, risk assessments for people in homes as well. So we've started that as a service. If you think about how many people are working from home, and especially when it first started, working off our dining boards and all sorts of things. So, making sure that actually where they are is fit for purpose. We're offering now, I think Sarah was mentioning it earlier on in her organisation, but we're offering masterclasses so people can dial in on Zoom or Teams, and some of our chefs are doing cooking classes so that they can utilise. So in their spare time or a certain time of day, they can join a cooking class that we're running from one of our chefs that's doing a whatever it could be this week. Or and then other things like we're doing motivational speakers. So getting with a customer, if there's something that's going on in their organisation, we'll organise some kind of conference or something for them to go and listen into. So a lot of stuff, both virtually and physically, bringing things to people's places. So it's a whole line of things that we're now working through, and working with a number of customers, and that's been growing. One thing I've just come back to on your previous question is around sort of real estate, and what we're seeing from a supplier is that, without exception, I think every customer is reviewing their real estate portfolio. But to Sarah's point, I think the biggest thing we're seeing is the fact that the complete change of what the office environment is going to be used for. So we are spending a lot of time working with them on design concepts for what a typical office floor was like, what it's going to be like going forward. Hence around different use of space. That's is a real big thing. Then equally, we are being used very much, I'd say, within customer organisations, almost as the conduit or the integrator in their own organisation, where we seem to be the organisation that brings together real estate, the HR, the IT functions, and we're doing quite a lot of, I would say, advisory work that would normally perhaps be done in-house. So we're running surveys for the employee, the customers, the employees to find out about what they want from the workplace. We're running sort of technology sessions for understanding what. So I think we've definitely seen ourselves be moving up the value chain, which is great because that's what we've been wanting for a while. And actually now having a seat at the senior level, supporting our customers with really much their whole work journey and workplace. So which is great to see.
Very good. And one of the questions that came in from Claire was more examples, Simon, of how you're using technology. But that example of doing online cooking lessons, without the technology, we wouldn't be able to do that. But maybe if we've got time, we might come back to some of those items. And what I'm hearing there, Simon, is there could be a few more strategic business lines in ISS's offering globally, including risk assessments in the home as well as running IT.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, once again, we are continuing to review and refine what our service offerings are. And we know for a fact that they are changing as we come through this, and we'll see a big opportunity. And the other big agenda point, which we haven't even discussed, is the big focus for us with most of our customers as they return is all around the sustainability agenda. And that's something that is gathering pace rapidly across all of our client organisations, and how FM supports that agenda.
Right. With 15 minutes to go on this discussion, I might ask the panel to start thinking of the future and what this looks like in the future, particularly in relation to future solutions, future budgets, how those are affected. But before I put Sean on the spot with those two questions about the future in terms of solutions and budgets, just wanted to make an observation from Emmanuel Chantomps that's just made a very good point about today's great opportunity to celebrate our key workers. It is World FM Day, and I don't think we should lose sight of those key workers, and those workers often have that low level of connectivity within the organisation. So I think that's something we need to keep thinking about, of how do we embrace and connect those people. So well said, Emmanuel. But coming back to Sean on the future, mate, where do you see the future heading in the next 12, 36 months?
I think it's really, FM is building on what we've achieved, I think, over the last year and a half or so. So I think FM continues likely to be a catalyst and driver for future solutions. I think they'll continue and probably be improved alignment with end users to determine what is required, and really to build this solid foundation and awareness of what are the changing needs. I think as everyone's pointed out, this will require ongoing and probably increased collaboration with HR, IT, legal, finance, and others to ensure that we really consider all the various impacts of potentially working in different and hybrid ways and in different locations are considered. I think another area as well is probably the workplace of the future, previous to what it has been in the past, won't be defined through the specification of kind of technical service level descriptions. I think the long-term future will probably be much more personalized. There'll be a formation of products that end users can directly relate to and select depending on their requirements, where they are. And this will elevate this whole employee experience, particularly in the war for talent, because we play a key role. Every time someone comes into our office or a workplace, even at home, where we, Simon said, we provided the furniture or equipment, that does have an impact on people's perceptions, on their feelings, on the way that they behave. So I see that becoming increasingly important. I think, really working closely with external providers, companies like ISS and these other big Iwfm, leveraging that vast expertise, focusing on what are the innovation and optimization opportunities. How can we use predictive technology? If we have people only coming into the office a certain day of the week, then we need to know from a catering perspective, what can we provide to them? You know, is there a certain day of the week that people prefer certain foods? How can we have predictability when it comes to cleaning or asset maintenance and so on? So I think these will all become important factors moving forward from my perspective.
This war for talent, Sean, you mentioned, that also applies for getting more people into this great profession and industry of ours, doesn't it? Which I think's been a key issue over the last 20 years. So how do you see this acting as a catalyst for attracting more people into this sector?
I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, I think, as we said before, this broader appreciation of the role of FM, raising the profile from an operational level to a strategic value-adding profession. And I think we'll really start to integrate people, place, process, and technology rather than kind of talking about it. And I think through this switch from a pure focus on the built environment to the role of the virtual workplace, and getting involved at a more strategic level to support the business direction, I think is likely to have profound implications in terms of the type of individual the industry attracts, perhaps making it more attractive to people who perhaps don't come from the traditional technical or built environment background. So I think we see a strategic, more dynamic industry emerging. It will require a range of additional skill sets to complement those that we traditionally see, with this added focus on strategy development skills. So yeah, I think it's all good. And, you know, if we can target at those people that are making that career path decision, then I think, you know, we have an opportunity to really get, you know, the best people involved in the industry to drive it forward.
Very good, very good. Sarah, the future from your perspective, and hopefully you'll be pushing for more budgets in your FM and workplace budgets, so you can reward all of these frontline workers that are doing a fantastic job, and also keep raising the bar. You know, we've commoditized this industry over the last 10 years, and never before in my career has there been a time where we should be saying, actually, this is not about commoditizing services. This is about being more strategic. So what do you see the future being?
I mean, kind of experience within ISS as well, like Simon was saying, you know, the people that are doing these roles, they are the key, and they always have been. You know, people, you know, the cleaners will go and speak to everyone on the floor. They're the first people that people see as they're coming in through security. You know, all these touch points when actually it's the people that really make the difference. And you know, that's key, and it always will be. You know, we're always going to need that kind of interaction, and those guys have really started to get that recognition, and I'm sure that's going to continue. And I feel that it's really changed. There's been a step change in how companies are looking at FM and the services and the service providers, and really looking at them as a strategic partner rather than a commodity, like you said. Yeah. I think from a future perspective, as we were saying, around the different ways that we're going to be using the offices and the workplace, and what that's going to look like from a tech perspective, and how we're really going to integrate that kind of remote working with office working, and that experience of how you kind of streamline that to also have the culture of that company. You know, traditionally the office environment has provided the culture of that company. So how do you take that culture and be able to provide that remotely for people? And as Simon was saying, you know, with things like remote risk assessments, companies are really starting to think now, are our people safe at home? You know, have they got the right environment? If you look at people in Hong Kong or in Japan, They're usually in very, very small living conditions, maybe with multiple kids around, and, from a domestic perspective, are people safe working there? So there's so many different elements that need to come in from a HR perspective, a tech perspective, the design and build. So it's going to, like I said, it's going to be a really, really exciting time. And I don't think we're going to get it right first time, right? It's going to adapt. Like if you look, I was doing a little bit of reading before we started at how pandemics of the past have really shaped the world that we live in today. Like if you look at, back in the 1850s with cholera and tuberculosis in the UK, that actually created the sewage systems and, the working conditions for some of the factory workers, and looking at those green spaces. And that really means that we've got the London that we have today. And I think the same thing is going to happen now with, how we're working, the office structures, what they look like, how we go. I think there's going to be a big shift moving forward in the future.
Yeah, good point, Sarah. And I also, it comes back down to that massive change driving the innovation. And another comment that was made about, we touched on sustainability, the agendas that are being pushed globally, quite rightly, to reduce carbon. This is all a fantastic opportunity to look at different ways of working, so we can address that bigger issue strategically of how do our buildings, how do our operations, how do our waste streams reduce the carbon impact. So I think we've got to keep embracing this. Simon, some final words from you, and then I'll go to the panel for some final words, because we've only got 5 minutes. But I would say ISS have got a fantastic graduate program of trying to get people into the market. But final words from you, Simon, in terms of where you see it.
A few things. I think a lot of what's just been said, I fully agree and support. So I think it will be the people that make the difference, as it always will be, that's out there. And I think, that's been the great thing about what's happened. It has moved our profession to a different level, and hopefully it will continue to grow and won't go backwards. And I think we're all responsible to making sure that doesn't happen, and we've really got to push this now as an industry. Interesting about the graduates that you say, and I think we are starting to see a shift, because we run as you say, a global graduate program every year, and this year, as we've had over 50% more applicants than we had in the last 2 years. So is that a coincidence, or is that because people are suddenly seeing this as an industry to come and join because of the excitement, the versatility of it? And I think, from the future of what it looks like, I think the future has no end. I think there's so many possibilities of how this is going to go. One of that, we looked from an organisation and sort of during last year and launched our new sort of core story as an organisation, which I think is playing so well into what the future looks like, with our core story being people make places, places make people. And I think that's exactly it. We see ourselves as place makers, and whether that is in the office, in a factory, in an airport, in someone's home, it's how we can make sure as an organisation we're servicing that organisation, that organisation's employees, and it is going to become a much more personal, bespoke service without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that is something that we've got to adapt to. Flexibility, collaboration, all those things are things that's here to stay. And as you say, the sustainability agenda is going to probably be a big catalyst to move some of these things forward.
Fantastic. Well, look, I've only got 2 minutes, so I might wrap up the panel discussion there, unless Sean or Sarah have got any burning things they want to say. But I would say thank you to all of you for participating today, and thank you for allowing me to go completely off script, because the questions that were coming in from the audience really drove the discussion. Like always, we had a kind of a pre-prepared script, but we've gone away from all of that. So thank you for being putting you on the spot and answering as many questions as I could from the audience. Just some final words. Again, thanks for all of the participants. Thanks for Sean and Nigel Looker for organising the WebFM events across the globe on behalf of Global FM. membership to IWFM, I always think it's fantastic value because there's so much information on the IWFM website, the Insight Hub, the good practice guides, the research. We talked about sustainability, the sustainability report, the latest one's excellent. So do have a look on the website. If you're not a member, you can get hold of all of that information if you join. There's also a fantastic portal on the IWFM website about COVID-19 resources. I was doing a training session yesterday and people were saying to me, where do I get information about COVID-19 return to work? And there's a great portal there on returning to work and some of these navigating turbulent times webinars. The last penultimate slide is all about the impact awards, the IWFM impact awards. The deadline is next week for entries. We're back in London at the Marriott Grosvenor on the 11th of October. It's a fantastic night. We had to do it virtually last year. And as a lead judge, I've got to get a plug in for that. Get your entries in there. It's a fantastic night. You've got to be in it to win it. 18th of May is the closing deadline for the impact awards. There's individual categories, there's group categories. And the final thing I would say, the last slide, is about the IWFM Conference 2021. Really touching on the theme of today, emerging stronger from this whole pandemic. And I think what I've learned throughout the last 15 months, and this was reiterated with today's panel discussion, this is a perfect opportunity of not only remembering and recognizing all of those people at the service end of the equation that are doing a fantastic job, whether it's M&E, maintenance, cleaning, portering, security, but it's also a fantastic opportunity to really get FM and the workplace the voice at the table, you know, in the C-suite where we're actually influencing the workplace agenda. Sean talked about it, you all talked about it, the fact that this is about enhancing the customer experience, making sure our organizations get people the talent that they want, supporting and improving the core objectives. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity now as a result of this pandemic to capitalize on that. So I would say keep banging the drum, everybody, about this fantastic opportunity. It's been a great privilege to host today's Turbulent Times discussion, particularly on World FM Day. So thanks everybody. Happy World FM Day, World FM Week. Speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.